Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, it's going to be Multi-Smite Devotion Void Knight. So, I want to be clear, first things off, this build would do a lot more damage if we were Electrify right now. Electrify has a lot more support than what I'm currently playing, and there's two reasons why I'm not playing it right now. First things, it's kind of boring. You know that feeling when the developers play the build before you even play it and they've already set it all up. It's pretty obvious with the Electrify spread on healing hands, like all the Electrify support and even the Electrify sword, right? Aurelis. It's kind of like, but that's the first reason. The second reason is specifically in this case, dot builds for Sentinel might be getting a gigantic nerf next patch, and that is because Volatile Reversal has been confirmed by the developers to be slated for changes next patch in 1.2. That is because Volatile Reversal is a very strong skill, and it has become the Zeitgeist, the boogeyman of Sentinel, and it means that it will be getting changes, and it will have its buff spread across the rest of the class. But the problem is, I doubt that they'll keep the massive 120% increased damage over time taken from Volatile Reversal. This means that this is probably going to get nerfed, and if that nerf goes through, that means that pretty much a lot of Sentinel dot builds are going to go into the gutter, and so will the multi-smite Electrify build. So I wanted to play a build that would actually survive next patch, so that's why we're playing Devotion Crit. Now, before we get into the video, if you haven't already, I'd heavily suggest leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel, as that is the best way of currently supporting me, best way of showing me that you want more videos and content like this. Now, let's talk about the build, shall we? So, why are we a Void Knight? The reason why we're a Void Knight is for two reasons. First things off, we get extra clear with the extra Smite cast nodes. So if you don't know, we are playing Multistrike, and we are converting the extra swords that you would get from Multistrike into Smite casts using this node, and that allows us to clear very easily. There's also another node on the other side that gives us a sword on kill, one sword on kill only. That means that, whenever our smite kills something, it casts another smite nearby, which is great, right? Then, of course, we're using the combo of Palarus. Palarus is very important in this build. It gives us an extra 3 procs of smite, but to achieve this 3 procs of smite on average, we need a lot more attacks than normal, and that's why we're a Void Knight, because we get more echoes, more melee attacks, because Polaris doesn't state it has to be in use of a skill, so we can use the echoes, we can use the healing hands as melee to proc even more smite casts. That's because Aurelis, if you don't know, if you're dual wielding Aurelises, it does not give you any benefit. You don't get 2 smites per hit, you only get 1. So dual wielding with a Polaris is just free damage pretty much, because we can't really stack Aurelises that well, especially if we're not playing the Electrify version. And that's all great and dandy, right? Another reason why we're playing Void Knight is just the clear just feels really good with the echoes. Like, I'll be honest, this is probably some of the best clear I've ever had on a melee build. Obviously, there are some better builds out there, like Flame Reeve, a Spellblade for clear, because you can actually hit the entire screen with with the World Splitter. Same thing with Erasing Strike and stuff like that. But I still like the clear of this build. Now, I'll be honest, the damage on this build is not very high, sadly, even with all of the effort that I've put into it. As you can see, we're at like 650-ish corruption right now, and it takes a little while to kill single targets. And I'll be honest, I'm okay with that. It's just really hard to make builds scale into the end game these days, because the standards have risen so ungodly high. What merited a good build 2 patches ago and what merits a good build now, it's a massive increase in difficulty in general and massive increase of HP that bosses have. So trying to make everything fit the mold of that is very difficult and stressful, I will say. I was actually about to can this build until I realized that there's a combo that allows us to actually stay alive in higher echo monoliths, even as an HP build with, not that much HP, and we're also dual wielding. We're actually surprisingly tanky, all things considered. That is because I remembered that we can utilize Font the Erase. If you don't know Font the Erase, it gives us ward on hit based on our missing life and our missing mana. Right now, we can get like 45 ward on hit, and that is just enough to keep us alive. As you can see, whenever I take any HP damage, not only do I gain a lot of my HP back from the healing effectiveness from the smites and the casts of Healing Hands melee, we also get the ward on hit as well, and that allows us to face tank things until they die. So essentially, we walk up to stuff, we hit them until they die. And that's great. Turns out that works pretty well in the higher corruption monoliths because things have enough HP where they survive long enough for you to just sit there and face tank them. So this is very much similar vibes to like Smite and Path of Exile, where you get extra strikes and stuff like that. And then, like it actually kind of feels very similar to Smite Path of Exile, which is kind of funny considering we're using Smite in the last Epoch. So we've essentially made a Smite build just in last Epoch. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with the build. Like, I think it's a decent build. It's just, like I said, the single target DPS is a little bit lower than I'd like it to be, but we can kind of like face tank stuff, so that kind of like makes up for that. Also, as well, like going past 600 corruption is kind of a fruitless endeavor anyways in terms of like rewards versus difficulties for most builds. So it's like fine if some builds only stay at like 600 corruption. It's like not a big deal. Now, with all that being said, let's go in game and talk about the build more in detail, shall we? Alright, here we are in game with the character. Let's talk about the skills, shall we? So for multi-strike specifically, we just want to grab the extra stacks here. So we get 3 stacks of multi-strike, so we attack with 3 different swords. Then we also grab all the extra flat armor. This is actually very strong. It's like 450 flat armor. If you don't know, the flat armor from the blessing, specifically from Spirits of Fire, is like 300. So this is like an extra blessings with the flat armor. It's really good as well if you're actually block effectiveness scaling as well. We get an additional sword at 0 stacks. This actually is relevant later. Then we're grabbing 2 nodes here in Echoed Warfare, so we get extra swords. Then 1 node into Hallowed Arsenal to turn the swords into smites. Now, something interesting with this build is we need to be maintaining a balance of mana to damage. So it's a little weird. So if you don't know, these smites here, they cost mana instead of, being free like all the other smite procs. This means that we're going to be draining our mana consistently because we're running smite, which has 8 mana originally, and there's a problem there. What'll happen is you'll notice in the footage I will be at 0 mana constantly. Now that means that these additional smite procs won't go off from multi-strike if we're at 0 mana constantly. Thankfully, we have a solution. So if we run Bladed Focus, we gain 14 mana per stack of armament, which is 3, right? We'll go to 3 stacks of armament, we'll drop below 0 mana, then we'll instantly bump back up to like 40-ish mana. That means that we can do like a bunch of smite procs, and then, we'll go back to 0 mana, then we'll do it again. The reason why this even works is because we have so many extra swords from Echoed Warfare and from Flanking Strikes. All of these extra swords means that our clear doesn't even like have a deficit because of the fact that we're consuming armament stacks all the time. This means that we can actually maintain, clear pretty well, even with consuming all of our armament stacks, which is great. Then on single target, we don't actually consume these because we never go below 8 mana because these swords don't proc on single target, meaning that this never comes into play on single target. And it was kind of the glue that held the entire character together, as without this combo, we would have to run desperate measures to have free smites. And that's a lot of extra points, and that would be a lot less damage overall. And we also have Victory Strikes, additional sword stack on kill, so we get a bunch of extra sword attacks. Also, the target area allows us to hit in a larger area. And that's pretty much it for multi-strike. Smite here. Smite, I have +2 on my relic, and then I have +1 on my Aurelis. In theory, if you were to min-max, you would have, I think, like an extra 3 points in Smite, and you'd put it in Conflagration, Sacrifice, and like Blinding Flash for even more damage, but I have less Smite levels than I should because the market's kind of going wazoo. It's like going crazy. So the main things we care about is Order of Lagan, converted to Lightning, of course, then Unbound Skill. This gives us a lot of extra clear. Every single time we hit 2 targets, they hit each other with the lightning bolts, which is great. This gives us unparalleled clear in that regard. Lets us shotgun things multiple times, which is great and clear. And you can see in the footage, like, it feels really good when that happens. We're grabbing all the more damage from Sacrifice, grabbing 4 points in Atonement. I found 4 points in Atonement, and this is really good. The reason why is because whenever we're losing life, we can actually gain ward on hit. Whenever we are missing health, we gain ward on hit. And then with our healing, we instantly go back to max. So we have made a pseudo Twisted Heart setup with the Sacrifice loop, with the, Font of the Erased, and this node. This allows us to actually build up a decent barrier of ward, around like 500 ward, even without any retention. So we actually go up from 4.5k EHP to 5k EHP, which is kind of funny. That's why we're only grabbing 4 points in Atonement instead of 5. Then we grabbed 3 points in Conviction to get a little bit of base crit. I actually went for a Phantom Grip Ring 2LP1 to actually fill out our base crit, and it actually saves us a point on Smite, so we can get more damage. Then 3 points in Conflagration, 60% more damage here. And that's pretty much it for Smite. What's really cool is since we're applying Blind on hit with our Smites, we cannot critically strike. This means we have no crit avoid at all. It means we have no less damage taken from, all that, which is really cool. That's great. Now, reversal. Stereotypical reversal tree. Nothing really different. It's just the same. Healing Hands. Same kind of like Healing Hands utility setup. Mainly, we just want the upfront healing because we actually want the healing. Get it to 0 mana cost. We want the melee hit. The reason why is because it procs our Polaris more consistently. Polaris here. The chance on smite on melee hit, so we want it to be a melee attack. The spell version doesn't do that much damage because we're running a devotion setup, and that's giving us our flat damage for our smite, but that does not give us flat damage for everything else. So the spell damage version of Healing Hands wouldn't even do that much damage, so that's why we have it built in this specific way. And of course we have it as a movement skill because Healing Hands as a movement skill is absolutely orgasmic. It's amazing. I love it so much. It is amazing to play with. It's great. So Healing Hands movement skill is great. Then we have Anomaly here. Anomaly is just here for extra attack speed and crit chance, and then, extra bubble and cooldown recovery speed. This actually applies to your evade and your Healing Hands, which is cool, so we can move faster. And that's pretty much it for the skills. Let's talk about passives that are important. There's nothing too crazy this time around, just, grabbing the extra attack speed here at the top of Sentinel. Paladin here, just getting up to Sigils of Hope. The reason why we need Sigils of Hope is because we need a way of draining our mana on single target, because we don't actually gain or lose mana on single target. So while we're smacking a single target like this, we need to actually use another we need to use a sigil every so often to keep our mana low, which is not that big of a deal, right? That's why we're actually not running Time and Faith. Time and Faith will allow us to... Time and Faith would make us make too much mana too quickly, and it would make it so it would pretty much disable Devotion. So we need to actually not be running Time and Faith. And that's why we're running this specific setup, and we're not running a spec Sigils of Hope. It's just very very convenient being able to run a unspec Sigils of Hope on our bar and to suck all our mana up on single target. And as you can see, like, it's not that big of a deal. And that's why we're not running the extra mana. But of course, we have the extra mana from Bladed Focus, and this does not proc on single target. So we have all of our mana issues solved just by this one little change. That's great. So let's talk about the rest of the passive tree here. Then here, just grabbing all the Echo Chants. I actually did not go for Avatar Regret. That is because it reduces our attack speed by 10%. And the Echoes, they actually don't contribute that much for a single target. So Aurelis, if you don't know, it's 100% chance to cast Smite after you use a multi-strike and hit a boss, a rare enemy. So this is when you use it. So this does not work off of triggers. So like for instance, echoes. These echoed multi-strikes do not actually proc the Smite from Aurelis, which sucks. But it's fine because we get so much extra clear from the echoes that it's fine. That's why we're actually a Void Knight instead of a Paladin. But it does mean that we don't need this extra 10% echo chance, as it reduces our single target while not giving us extra single target. We are actually grabbing these vitality nodes, and we're having a small amount of vitality scaling to get a little bit of extra DPS with our smite here. 28 void spell. Sure, it's not like lightning damage, but it's still flat damage. Flat damage is flat damage. Then, that's the rest of the Void Knight tree. Forge Guard, we're just grabbing the 10% melee attack speed. And that's pretty much it for the passives that are important. Let's talk about Blessings. Blessings, crit multi here. You probably should get a better one. I just leveled this character yesterday, so that's why they're not all perfect. Mana here as well. Mana just gives us more flat with Devotion. Here, all resistance, we can actually afford to go all resistance here. That is because we don't need crit avoid because we're blinding things. We're going for percent armor here for armor, and we should be going for flat armor here, but I don't have a single source of frailty on my character. Instead of that flat health, that should be frailty, or have frailty on the amulet, or frailty on the relic. We should have frailty somewhere, but that's 18% less damage taken, and it's multiplicative with the rest of our armor. Our armor is pretty high for as it is. And in combat, we have like 62% armor, and the 18% less damage is better than the 300 flat armor would be giving us. So that's good and dandy. Either armor or frailty here. Of course, you can always go for armor once you have the source of frailty that's proper. And that's pretty much it for blessing. Let's talk about gear that's important. So for this build, the most important pieces of gear are, of course, the Aurelis. I really like the 3LP one with the attack speed. Same thing with Polaris. Polaris for the attack speed as well. We can also get our source of shred on one of these weapons. I also went for a lightning pen, but I think your gearing problems would be much easier if you shed one of these lightning pens and went for crit chance. This would make it much easier to gear, as it would cap your crit much quicker. I just didn't hit anything in terms of crit, so whatever, like instead of that chill, you go for a crit. I didn't hit crit on either of my swords, and I didn't want to spend too much gold on it. Helmet here, just a peak of the mountain. Obviously, we could go for a better one later on, but it just worked for now. Just percent mana and health, although you want like actual affixes on your peak of the mountain. So keep rolling them till you get something good. Amulet here, crit multi. That's a T7 crit multi. It's one of the best spots to get crit multi, so I'd suggest putting crit multi on your devotion. Then whatever you get else, like spell crit, HP, lightning pen, double HP, like whatever you end up getting on your devotion. Then here our chest. This chest is ridiculous. Don't try to replicate it. Essentially, just go for one with flat mana and strength, and then HP. HP, the reason why we care about strength so much is strength actually gives us a decent amount of flat damage. So if you see here, one spell flat damage per 2 strength. We're at 49 strength. We're actually getting 25 flat from Palarus alone. And that's why we're grabbing so much strength. Not only that, it also scales our armor, which is great. The +2 multi-strike is not useful. Like, it's fine that it's there, but it's not useful. It could be somewhere else. That's why this chest doesn't really matter. T7 mana, of course, and T7 strength. This was out of a Nemesis box. So you put stuff in the Nemesis will poop out stuff like this constantly. When there are more people playing a merchant skill, chests like this exist way more often. I managed to snag it pretty cheaply. Of course, because of this chest being so strong, I would probably suggest not playing this build, probably until like more people are actually playing the game, and you can get a +2 at Aurelis with 3LP. You can get a +4 Smite Relic and stuff like that. The market's out of like fucking whack right now, so chests like this normally would be easy to get. It's more difficult to get right now. Belt here, just health, lightning damage. Phantom Grip here with healing effectiveness and HP. You want the 2% base crit on the copper ring base, of course. Here, Font of the Erase, I just went for crit chance and HP. I just went to the market and bought a Font of the Erase that was pre-rolled. You could just buy a bunch of fonts and then roll them until you get something usable. I like crit chance, it helps me cap my crit. Then here, Falcon Fists. Falcon Fists are your best in slot because not only are they on a decent base, they give you the endurance percent, they also give you double attack speed and they're low LP. Falcon Fists are really good right now. Boots here, just my Terra's Path that I slammed a few weeks ago. The movement speed, T7 hybrid. Then the relic here. This was a pain in the ass to get. That's because plus levels to Smite on the market right now is non-existent for some reason, even though no one's playing Smite right now. Whatever. Usulani Sphere is really strong as it gives us 360% increased damage for just existing, thanks to the fact that our intelligence and attunement are equal. It'll go up to like about this relic. This relic gives us 460% increased damage. Of course, we're using Usulani Spear. Then for idols here, just increased damage of Smite, increased damage of Smite. You just want as much damage as possible on this build. Then, HP idols to fill out the rest. And one idol of Shock on hit. This will get us to Shock Cap on single target, and of course some cold res to help us cap our cold resistance. And that's pretty much it for the idols. That's pretty much it for the build. With all that being said, this has been Dread. Off to go do something else. Bye.